calm, cool, collected doesn't even begin to describe it. You set it up well. He is so matter of fact, as if the outcome is an eventuality against Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer, and now after third Hall of Famer, that I don't really know that there's a comp. I mean, yes, there's a lot of Conor McGregor parallels to be drawn, but even the way after he wins, he's just like, he doesn't even have the desire, and maybe it's because he's 5'6" and he can't get there. No, I'm just kidding, but he doesn't even have the desire to jump on the cage. It's just crazy. And the celebration the night before, when an athlete says things like, I'm just going to collect the belt and I won it in camp, right? It's like, yeah, but you still got to go perform on fight night. You can't be flat on fight night. We used to say about Floyd Mayweather, 50-0 is 50-0. He was never flat on fight night. You still got to go out and do it. But with this guy, it is almost as if he bends time.
What a week it was this past week for fight fans, for UFC fans, for the likes of Ilia Topuria and Alexandre Pantoja, and this man as well, the great Jon Anik, who joins us fresh off of UFC 317 this past Saturday, an international fight week in Las Vegas. Jon, how are you? Are you well rested? Have we caught up on sleep yet?
No, we're not there yet, but I got to say, still riding the wave. You and I have talked for many years. And in some part, as Red Sox fans, we talk about baseball, but mostly about mixed martial arts and the UFC owning the summer when the NFL is dark and when there's not much going on. And needless to say, it was one of the best pay-per-views of the year, and the athletes deserve credit. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we don't get a chance to smell the roses. It's on to New Orleans, but it's nice to have a few minutes to decompress.
Yeah, and there's so much to unpack from UFC 317 and everything there, but congratulations to you, my friend. Full circle moment for you. You'll be on the call, part of the Canelo versus Crawford broadcast, September 13th, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Huge fight, huge event, huge crowd expected. This is great news, Jon Anik. I'm sure you were quite excited about this opportunity.
Yeah, well, thank you, buddy. When I threw my name into the hat, I never expected it to come to fruition. I was asked if I was interested, and here we are. At one point, it looked like maybe it was going to conflict with the UFC pay-per-view, but thankfully, that's not the case. I'll certainly miss Noche UFC, which I've had the pleasure to call a couple of times, but yeah, we'll be there at Allegiant Stadium. Excited to get back into the boxing world for the first time since 2010, when I called the WBC heavyweight championship between Vitaly Klitschko and Shannon Briggs. But been a long time, Michael. I covered boxing from 2003 to 2008. But right after our Chicago pay-per-view for the UFC, I have a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to, give this fight everything that it obviously deserves. So the responsibility is not lost on me, as you've heard me say, and yeah, man, just very, very grateful that they called my number, and very excited once the broadcast team is revealed in full to be able to talk about everybody. But Max Kellerman is the man, widely beloved and rightfully so, and excited to work with him again. And here we go.
And I don't know how much you could reveal about this, but I assume because of this new Zuffa boxing endeavor, pun completely intended there, but that this is not a one and done for you with the TKO thing, or is this going to be like maybe specific fights, if they're big, something of this nature? Maybe we give Jon a call, or do you know sort of your role? Is this just an event at a time kind of a thing, if you don't mind me asking?
So I don't know yet, and as a man of complete veracity, that's the truth. Certainly I need to earn that seat in whatever way, right, to be asked to call their next big fight. But no, it just kind of came up, and not to suggest that it's a one-off per se, but just going to try to attack September 13th the way I attack UFC 318, and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, congratulations again. Well deserved. And now let's go back in the time machine a few days to UFC 317, because you mentioned it. This card rocked, Jon Anik. It was one of the best overall fight cards, not just of the year, I think in quite some time. Main card was amazing. The two championship performances we're going to remember for a while. And what puts it over the top for me is when we start talking year-end awards. A lot from this card is going to be in that conversation, and you were there for the entire thing.
You know that I put Max Holloway's performance against Calvin Kattar on such a pedestal that it's the most untouchable performance, singularly in UFC history. And yet here we are with Joshua Van and Brandon Royval becoming the first two fighters in UFC history to both land 200 or more significant strikes in a fight, and it was 15 minutes. So don't at me with your Max Holloway stuff, okay? We're talking about one athlete throwing nearly 800 punches, but no, it was incredible. And my gosh, man, I've been listening to Kenny Florian on the Anik and Florian podcast. And it's not a cheap plug. Talk about Ilia Topuria for 3 years. And I'm like, really, bro? Like, really? You talk about this guy like you want to date him. I understand he's a great fighter. He is unbelievable. And I think for a mixed martial arts mind, as amateurish as mine, it's almost lost on me just how good he is. But I think sometimes we get sort of lost in the bigger picture when it really just comes down to a great athlete doing the really simple things really, really well, refining them. And my goodness, man, Topuria is only getting better, right? And that's a scary proposition to, I think, a lot of fighters across three divisions right now.
He's just something else. Like the confidence he provides, like it's a different confidence than Conor McGregor. Like Conor was really loud and boisterous about it. And Ilya's just the same swagger and the look on his face. I mean, he's out with his teammates and friends and he's celebrating becoming champion the night before becoming the champion. I mean, the swagger and all of that he brings to fight week. And then the damn bell rings and it's just something even more special. He knocks out Charles Oliveira in a half a round. He puts him out. And now he's the lightweight champion, the two division champion, not simultaneous. And his response to it all is obviously happiness, but it's also more like, yeah, kind of told you this was going to happen. That's just the sort of feeling he just exudes. It's unbelievable. Like for you, just watching the moment, the knockout, the aftermath of it all, just seeing who this guy is in these moments. What is that like for you?
It is nuts. It's like nothing I've seen before. And I know sometimes I'm criticized for sounding extra hyperbolic, right? But calm, cool, collected doesn't even begin to describe it. You set it up well. He is so matter of fact, as if the outcome is an eventuality against Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer, and now after third Hall of Famer, that I don't really know that there's a comp. I mean, yes, there's a lot of Conor McGregor parallels to be drawn, but even the way after he wins, he's just like, he doesn't even have the desire, and maybe it's because he's 5'6" and he can't get there. No, I'm just kidding, but he doesn't even have the desire to jump on the cage. It's just crazy. And the celebration the night before, when an athlete says things like, I'm just going to collect the belt and I won it in camp, right? It's like, yeah, but you still got to go perform on fight night. You can't be flat on fight night. We used to say about Floyd Mayweather, 50-0 is 50-0. He was never flat on fight night. You still got to go out and do it. But with this guy, it is almost as if he bends time. He is doing things that have guys like me who feel like I've seen a lot of things over 15 years throwing my hands up in the air and being like, I haven't really seen this.
What I loved, I think, about the moment so much is that, and I remember I was chatting with Pumi Nakuda yesterday, and he was at the event and he was sitting with Aljamain Sterling, and I asked him like what the vibes were in the arena when the moment happened, and he said the fans behind them went absolutely insane. They were screaming, they were yelling, they were going crazy, babies flying in the air, like they lost their minds. And then he said everybody in his section where the fighters were, silence. They were stunned. Just a surreal feeling watching one of their fellow athletes accomplish what he did. And it was just, he was like, I was stunned by all of this. It's like they're behind me going crazy. And we're all just like, holy shit, this guy is something else. And I remember like watching different watch parties, and there were some watch parties, people were like, oh my God. And then me and Jed were like, whoa, it's over. Just like that. And our eyes just dropped a little bit. Like, I'm just, since this moment, and I know you talked to Kenny about it, were there other fighters that you've talked to or people who were there? How maybe they described that moment to you, being there, sitting there? Like if you talk to Aljo or anybody like that, like what are other fellow fighters saying after that moment happened?
Well, you're just you sort of opening my eyes a little bit when you talk about that fighter section being silent. Just imagine if you are Islam Makhachev, Justin Gaethje, or Dustin Poirier, and you're watching that play out. Any fighter with recent history with Charles Oliveira, from say 2019 on, and then you see that, right? And don't tell me this isn't a prime Charles Oliveira, right? I mean, if this is the Hunger Games, he still leads the league, right? He's still as hungry as a fighter, right? So imagine what it's like for some of Ilia Topuria's contemporaries to be watching that. And I think that speaks to why that section was stunned, right? And, thankfully as commentators, we were anything but silent, because we have a job to do. But I think for a lot of fans, you and me, it's like, dude, I'm not going to put anything past this guy. I wasn't liking his chances at welterweight before this result. And then I'm thinking, my goodness, man, far be it from me to put anything past the guy. But no, I mean, just Cormier and Rogan, we had dinner after the fact. And, oftentimes our conversation ends up dovetailing to mixed martial arts anyway. But yeah, this Topuria, man, he's one of one, and his peers are certainly taking notice.
A lot of questions coming out of this one, but the biggest one that I've seen, and it's been the biggest debate of all, is with this win, is Ilia Topuria now the best fighter in the world? And it's obviously subjective and all of that. And the UFC has him in number one, and we just literally dropped our pound for pound shakeup rankings like a half an hour ago. We have him at number two, like neck and neck. I think it was the closest pound for pound race we've ever had in a shakeup between Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. Is he the best fighter in the world in your opinion right now, Ilia Topuria?
So it's hard to lose your number one slot if you're Islam Makhachev if you haven't lost a fight. But is it not crazy that we live in a world right now in which, if you go to UFC.com, Islam Makhachev is not a champion anymore? I mean, what did that guy do to not be a UFC undisputed champion right now? It's impossible to argue against what Ilia Topuria has done, right? It's very hard to argue against what Merab Dvalishvili has done, right? And certainly Islam just hasn't been the frequent competitor that Merab has been, or maybe Ilia, I guess, has been over the last however many months, But I mean, my goodness, man, it's, splitting hairs. I mean, it's a three-headed monster as far as I'm concerned. But if you just take Ilia and Merab and table Makhachev, who has been my number one pound for pound fighter in the world for what feels like half a decade, right? They've maximized their situation, right? Both of those two guys maximize their utility. And I don't know if you like knockouts, then Topuria is your guy over Merab, but in terms of like historical dominance, Merab's right there. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to argue against all these guys, and we'll see. Next man up, Magomed Ankalaev, and others are going to have a great chance to state their case soon, too.
Yeah. I mean, I keep telling people who get so mad at this discussion that there's an embarrassment of riches right now because like I know a lot of people are saying, well, the big star of the UFC is the three letters right now. Like they're doing all the work. They're the ones selling the tickets. It doesn't matter who fights. It's those three letters are so hot right now. But I tell people the talent on this roster right now is unbelievable. There are 6 guys right now, at least in my opinion, that if you wanted to tell me that they're the best fighter in the world, I would actually listen to you talk about this. If it's Topuria or Islam or Merab or Pantoja or Dricus du Plessis or Tom Aspinall, and then we talk about the Ankalaevs and the Volkanovskis and all these guys there. There's so many good fighters right now, John. Like, I don't remember a time where like it's always like 2 or 3 guys you could put in this conversation, but 6, 7 guys you could put in this conversation right now. It's crazy.
Well, just go division by division, and it really is an embarrassment of riches. And take it from Mike Heck and not a guy who works for the company, right? But just go to the welterweight division, right? Part of the reason I had pause in Ilia Topuria moving up to welterweight is because I could name 5 guys that are worthy of a championship opportunity right now, and Kamaru Usman might not even be one of them. So that I think just speaks to where we are at right now. And it always is interesting when people talk about the cupboard being bare or there not being stars. And I don't know how UFC 317 did on pay-per-view. I know that Ilia Topuria is a global superstar. And if he wasn't before, this Charles Oliveira result during International Fight Week is hugely useful. So it's exciting for us to see stars emerge. Certainly we've play some sort of role in trying to humanize these guys. But what amazing stories to tell, right? I mean, you see Topuria's son landing the spinning elbow and hitting cats. I mean, if that guy isn't the future, then I don't know what the present is.
Absolutely insane. Are we doing Paddy next, John? We got the face off. Arman Sarukian's there. Justin Gaethje's there. There's a number of guys who are trying to stake their claim for a lightweight title shot. But you and I have talked about this. We talked about it before UFC 314. If Paddy goes in there, beats Michael Chandler, they might just give him a damn title shot. Now that Ilia won the belt, especially the way he did it, I think they're going to cash in on this. But who the hell knows at this point? Because I don't know. Like, do you do Paddy? Do you hope Islam wins? Do you just strike when the iron's hot's there? Like, can you even make this decision right now?
Well, it kind of happened organically, right? Even if there was some forethought to it in our conversations or promotionally, right? It's not as though they had this amazing premonition. The Joshua Van thing certainly had forethought, and he was fighting the number one contender. This has a lot of different layers to it, right? I mean, you needed a lot of things to happen for this fight to now make sense at this point in time. Arman Sarukian weighed in as the backup, and that is useful. It's not as useful as a win, but you do establish some promotional goodwill. I don't know, Michael. I don't know if it's going to be Paddy Pimblett and you strike while the iron's hot, or if it's going to be the guy who we all believe is the true number one contender, Arman Sarukian, who seemingly had an opportunity. And Dana White's where he missed weight. Now, back injury, whatever it was, the boss's word is bond, right? So, whatever we said on broadcast or whatever the truth was at UFC 311, I don't know how that's going to impact the decision when it comes to how they matchmake Arman Sarukian. But Paddy Pimblett's win over Michael Chandler does not equate to Sean O'Malley's win over Piotr Jan. If there are people out there that want to sort of make a comparison as to maybe a guy who's a superstar getting an expeditious rise or a quick title fight, Piotr Jan was the number one contender. But I think Pimblett, I think Sarukian, the Gaethje stuff is interesting as well, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the direction in which they go, even though he's got a good case. What do you think? What do you think they're going to do? You think they strike while the iron's hot?
I think they're gonna do Paddy. I think you kind
Ah,
of. I just think they're gonna do it. I don't know, but I'm torn because if Islam wins the belt, like, do you just strike when the iron's hot's there? Like, this thing could change in 5 seconds. Like, it could literally change the second
so
Islam JDM ends.
Islam Ilia are fighting in what division? 55?
No, they'll they'll do it at
Ah,
70.
yeah, I mean, this
And
is
see, that's the
insane.
thing, though.
So,
That's the thing.
yeah,
Like, if Islam wins the third belt, like, what's like? I don't know if I think Ilya would just rather do it at 170, right? Like, I think you just do that, and that gives the advantage to Islam too, does it not?
is it the Ilia Topuria Fighting Championships? I mean, of course, Ilia would love to chase a belt at 170 pounds, but what about like Ian Machado Gary and all of these guys? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, they'd be
Shavkat.
ripping. They'd be ripping.
So there's just so much to this, right? So the other thing is that if you're talking about Jack Della Maddalena and Islam Makhachev fighting in late October, right? Topuria seemingly has an appetite to fight the first week of December, right? Now, there's a television contract. I have no idea, despite the fact that I work on TV, as to how that could play into things. But would you hold Topuria out for your new TV partner or your new television deal first quarter 2026? I just don't know. But I think Islam Makhachev and Jack Della Maddalena probably need to settle their business before they figure out what they're going to do with Ilya.
Yeah. But lightweight's the best division in the sport, John. As my colleague Jed Bishu
Yeah.
likes to say, there's no wrong way to eat this Reese's. And if we get Arman versus Justin Gaethje, if we get Arman versus Paddy Pimblett or Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, like, you are not going to get complaint one out of me. All of these fights are great. And I just want to see Arman Sarukian fight for the belt at some point. Hopefully we get there sooner rather than later. Simple question here, John. How good is Alexandre Pantoja? This guy, holy shit, man. He has cleared the second best flyweight of all time. I think that's a given at this point. He is making this look real easy. And you know what I love about this man, John? he ain't moving to 35. He just wants to keep rattling off title defenses in his own division. And I can't respect that man anymore after those words came out of his mouth.
I absolutely love Alexandre Pantoja. You know, when good things happen to good people, but he's made it happen. He has worked so hard. He's been hardened by so much professional and personal adversity. I absolutely love the man. I love the way he has gone about these last 2 years. And I don't know where I read victory lap sort of describing what the last 2 years have been like for Alexandre Pantoja, but it's been one big fucking victory lap, right? Winning 5 championship fights over the last 2 years, 4 times successfully defending the belt. And, you know, it's hard to compare eras when you talk about him and Demetrius Johnson, but in the modern era, handling all these different stylistic challenges that Pantoja has for him and Pahumpa and American Top Team, I'm just so happy for all of them. And if we could sort of put the 135-pound business to bed, we might as well just do that. You know, we did that in our fighter meeting with him. If he were to defend this belt 8, 9, 10 times, right, and Demetrius Johnson defended it 11 times, right, I just don't think it's realistic that Pantoja is going to be able to defend this belt 12 times. Okay, that would be 8 more defenses, with all due respect, right? So, were he to be of an appetite to move up to 135 pounds, no pun intended, he would have to move there with finality. You know, we talked to his strength and conditioning coach, Everton Oliveira. We talked to the fighter. He's not big enough to go fight Marab in a one-off. You know, he needs to put on the weight and then actually move up there and stay up there. So that's not going to happen. He's chasing greatness at flyweight, and the sport is better for it. They couldn't have a better, you know, champion slash ambassador than the Cannibal.
He's so good. He just makes it look so effortless. It's a pleasure to watch this man compete. And now he's gonna fight Josh Van. Golly, man, Josh Van just speed running this flyweight run. Pretty spectacular, man. I say this all the time. It's hard to become a star in today's UFC, but one way to do it is you just fight all the time. Like, just keep fighting and keep winning. And Josh Van has done that and then some. And now he's about to fight for a damn title at 24 years old. This is insane, Jon Anik.
And not yet 24, right? I mean,
Not
let's
yet.
give the man credit, right? I mean,
I
no,
know.
he's
Gee,
eight.
that makes me feel a million right now, just saying that.
So he is the 8th youngest fighter in the UFC. He has 8 UFC wins. And, you know, I got Chiwiwi's gear in the other room. You know, all hail Raul Rosas Jr., right? But this dude's fighting for the world championship at 23 years of age. You think back to a young John Jones against Shogun Rua and how wet behind the ears he was. And, you know, this kid has so many great traits and tools that make him a great competitor. You know, his ability to sort of move past that Charles Johnson knockout and just sort of chalk it up to being a little bit overzealous chasing the knockout, and you know, the cardiovascular base, the athleticism. You know, I try not to be repetitive, but sometimes as a talking head, you talk a lot, and I always harken back to our first fighter meeting with Joshua Van, and he's been wrestling for 6 months. For 6 months. You know, and now here we are 2.5, 3 years later, and he's going to have to out wrestle and out grapple Alexandre Pantoja if he wants to become the world champion. And, you know, far be it from me to put it past this kid. You know, he's incredible. Royval's incredible for giving him the opportunity. It takes two. You know, Royval putting his #1 ranking on the line. And, you know, you knew in our fighter meeting with Royval just how good Van was because of the way Royval spoke about him. So couldn't be happier for Joshua Van, the Burmese American. Myanmar's on the map. And thankfully, he's got a willing champion in Pantoja who wants to take on all comers, and he'll probably turn it around in 3 months.
I don't know if you've had a chance to rewatch that fight, but just sitting there live and watching that third round and those fists and feet flying so vigorously like an 80s cartoon. Did you think if Brandon Royval does not get dropped in those final seconds, do you think Brandon wins the fight?
Yeah, great chance to, and that's why you heard him utter "fuck," you know, after the fight, not because of any reason, but he knew in those waning moments that he probably had lost the fight. So yeah, I think he would have preserved that #1 ranking if it wasn't necessarily for that final sequence. But you know, the earth works in mysterious ways, my man, right? Especially in this mixed martial arts space, right? Royval has a lot of history with Pantoja, and even with a win here, he would have thrice defended his number one contendership and yet maybe still not have gotten the title fight. And yet, if Joshua Van had won, it all would make sense. And, here we are. So I think it's fascinating to see what Van can do with this opportunity because, you know, a guy like Kai Kara France has been spending his whole career trying to beat a guy like Pantoja, and you see what happens when he is able to get the body triangle and take your back. And he really is that good at that, right? But, if Joshua Van can start escaping fucking body triangles and stuff, Mike, in 3.5, 4 months, he might just be a phenom. He might be BJ Penn's second coming. Who knows?